the secret in personal branding is actually figuring out who you are and then just elevating that and amplifying that so you're more of who you are and attracting who appreciates that.
Hello, I'm John Brink and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. Now, everybody knows where Canada is, and then most people know where British Columbia is, and then Vancouver is also in British Columbia, the main city. Victoria is the capital. 500 miles north of Vancouver is Prince George. And so that's where we are. It's the center of British Columbia. A beautiful spot, beautiful nature, and all the things one could wish for. So today, a very, very special guest. Her name is Michelle McCarthy, and she is located in Melbourne, Australia. And her time is about 17 hours later than us. So it is about 10 o'clock in the morning, I think, on Thursday. And Michelle is very, very interesting in the topic of branding and coaching branding. And she's going to share with us all the things about personal branding. And she has done this or experimented with this for the last 15 years. Michelle has developed an unique personal branding framework. Now, Michelle, we're going to talk about branding a whole lot, but give us a bit of a background on you personally. Where are you from, the Melbourne area, or give us a bit of your background?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here. So I'm actually from Ireland.
Okay.
So you're a fellow European, and
I see
I
that,
moved.
yeah.
Yeah. So I moved to Australia about 7 years ago, and
Okay.
it's now my home. But I'm from Ireland originally. I lived in the States for a little while,
Okay.
and then and now I've settled in Melbourne.
So, sorry, I had to take a drink. I thought you were going to tell me a lot more there for a minute. So,
I sure I
anyway,
can.
so that being said, were you born in Ireland and where?
Yes. So I was born in Ireland in a small town called Tralee. It's down the southwest, so the bottom left-hand corner of Ireland.
Okay.
I was born there. I have two younger siblings,
Okay.
and I lived there right up until right after college. And after college, I moved to New York.
So you said, okay, I'm going to go elsewhere in this world. So I'm going to start with the USA, and
Mhm.
then for whatever reason, you decided to go to Australia.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if anyone's in the US, they could probably understand, particularly any expats. They know how difficult the visa process is in the US.
Yeah, yeah,
So I was in the US for about 2.5 years, but spread over about a 3-year period. I had to go
right.
home, the whole visa
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
So it just wasn't working out for me.
yeah,
New York beat the living daylights out of me.
yeah,
That saying where like you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That place beat me up. So
yeah.
I went home to recuperate for a little while, and I had a cousin in Perth, Australia, and was like, "Why don't you come over here?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it. I'll go for a year." And
Right.
7 years later, here I am.
And you fell in love with it.
Yeah, it just happened like organically. I think I put too much pressure when I decided that I wanted to go to New York. I was like, I had a going away party. I was like, I'm going to live like this is where I'm going to be forever. And I
Right.
put too much pressure on it. Whereas when I
Yeah.
moved to Australia, there was no expectation, and it made the whole process so much easier.
Much less complicated, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that then being said, so you have been there now for 7 years in Melbourne, and then when did you started to think in terms of a career on the branding of people in particular When did this all start? Was that already something you were thinking about in Ireland, then in the United States, and then carried it on to Australia? Because I believe in your bio you have been having this on your mind or being involved in it for the last 15 years.
Yeah. When I was in Ireland, I went to university. I got a BA in visual communications, which is just a posh way of saying graphic design. So I studied branding while I was there. When I went to New York, I worked for an agency and worked on branding there and graphic design. So I carried it with me, and I've been very fortunate to work with some really big companies, help them with their marketing, their brand strategy, and build out their brands. In 2020, I had a really bright idea that I was going to set up my own business in the middle of a pandemic. Who who doesn't think like that?
Timing is
And
everything, right?
I know. And so I had decided that I was going to set up my own graphic design business, my own branding business.
Right.
And because I had done it as a career and worked with some really big, notable companies, I was like, how hard can this be? I was like, bish, bash, bosh. I'll be a millionaire by Tuesday. Easy peasy. I do this for a living.
Yeah.
So, not surprisingly, it didn't actually happen that way.
No.
And what I realized through the process of trying to build my own personal brand was that it's actually quite difficult to build a personal brand. I had forgotten the person in personal brand. So through this process, I kind of realized that if I'm struggling with this, somebody who literally gets paid to build brands for a living, there has to be other people out here who in completely different industries who are really struggling with the personal branding side of things. So that's when I pivoted from corporate branding into the more personal branding side of things.
In particular of women or both?
Yeah, particularly with women. I mean, my
Yeah.
strategies and my framework will work for anybody. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
specific to women, but I feel more drawn to help women. I feel like a lot of the mindset work that I help them with is quite unique to women, particularly when they're balancing motherhood and careers, and it's
Right.
something that I can really empathize with.
Well, yeah, because you live there, right? And so branding is extremely important for corporations and individuals that aspire to careers or building, working on products or companies. How do you get your brand out there, and how do you raise it that it gets attention, and that so as you already said quite correctly, is that what you had the idea, you had the experience, but in order to be successful, you had to start with raising your brand to get attention, to say, Michelle McCarthy, she has it. So I will rely on her to advise or consult me on how do I take this product, company, or this person's profile forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. And one of the things that I got confused and where I approached it wrong, and I know a lot of my clients can do this before they come to me as well, is building a personal brand and building a company brand are not the same. And the biggest mistake I did was I took the company strategies and tried to apply it to a personal brand. And a personal brand, it's in the name, is personal. You have to remember the person in personal brand. And what's different when you're building like a company brand, be that services, SaaS, products, whichever, you can almost reverse engineer it in that you can see a gap in the market, see what people want, and then develop your brand to fit that gap and to meet that need. You Not that you can't do that as a personal brand, but it's always going to be an uphill battle. The secret in personal branding is actually figuring out who you are and then just elevating that and amplifying that so you're more of who you are and attracting who appreciates that.
So if I kind of look at myself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I will be 84 in November, actually. So I've been in business for the last. I finished my academic background fairly early. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. They said, okay, that's enough of that. So what do we do with this guy? So then some people said to my parents, well, maybe send them to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So we'll find him a job that he will like. My dad was in lumber, my grandfather was a master carpenter. So they said, well, maybe a furniture maker, he will like that. So at 13, I became a furniture maker in Holland.
Yeah.
So I'm still in the lumber business. So I've been in the lumber business for now 70 years. And then, the other thing that happened to me is, as you already indicated, I was born on the other side of the pond in Holland in 1940. And there was Second World War. I was born in 1940, and then we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. It made such an impression on me, the little 5-year-old boy, that if I got older, I would go, as soon as I could, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I wanted to go when I was 17. They wouldn't let me then. And then I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force. And then when I came out, I worked in the lumber industry again. And then when I was 23, I left Holland for Canada. And I had a dream. I wanted to show everybody that I was just as smart as they were, no lesser than. I could do it. And so my dream was to build my own lumber mill. And I wanted to start with nothing. And so when I left Holland, I had 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes. And, so I left for, where would I go in Canada? Well, where all the trees are, not all the trees, but a lot of trees are in British Columbia. So I wanted to go to British Columbia. So I flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada. Oh my God, that's a long way. 4 days, 5 nights. Anyway, so I came to Vancouver, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. I went to the immigration department, and they, fortunately there was a German fellow, I could speak some German. So I told him what I wanted to do. My dream was to build a sawmill. He said, Prince George, that's where you have to go. That's a boomtown, they're building mills and pulp mills and all those kind of things. So I took the bus, 13 hours, to Prince George. I can still see the Greyhound station here from my studio. And I got off the bus, I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times, and I had $25.47. And no job. But what I had lots of is attitude. I always am positive, even when things were not going well. I avoid negative, and I'm always positive. The other one, I had passion. That whatever I put my mind to, I have a passion. I give it 150%. And then the other one is work ethic. I work harder than anybody. Even now still, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so I still do that now. I still work 14, 16 hours a day, sometimes of 70, 80 hours a week. And I still do that now. So that being said, gives you just a little bit of background on me, is that I wanted to build a company. How do you build a company? And I did a presentation to a group of people the other day, and I'm also an author, so I was doing one of my books, and the girl with her parents came up to me, and she must have been about 10 or 12, and she heard my presentation about my $25.47. She said, how did you build a lumber mill with $25.47? I said, that's a good question.
It's an excellent question for a 10-year-old.
I like it, So in any event,
she'll go far.
Yeah. So in any event, so I started a mill, and now we're getting to branding. Is that the name of the mill was Brink Forest Products. It became the Brink Group of companies, And right now we have about 10 different companies and a whole lot of other stuff. And so the name Brink is still there, but then a lot of people said, even the ones that knew about the company, and saying, "Who's Brink? I don't know who Brink is." So that has changed, in particular in the last 20 years, I think, because I've been much more proactive in other things. I've become very proactive in being a speaker, as you are, a keynote speaker in demand. I'm obviously very proactive in podcasting. I'm also an author. I wrote 4 books, one against all odds. That is not about how successful John is, but rather the opposite, going through all the ups and downs. Now, the other thing is going to be a shock to you, but I have to show you. Amazingly, I'm also ADHD. I'm just being funny about that. So I wrote a book about that, ADHD Unlocked, quite successful actually. And then I wrote another book about finding your passion, living the dream. And I wrote a book about that. And then another book that's coming out in July. And I'm also into fitness and health. And that is this one here, Living Young, Dying Old. Picture of me, actually. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America.
I love it. You and I have a lot in common. I also did bodybuilding for a brief sprint. I don't advertise that. I also have ADHD, and I'm also a European expat. So
can you believe it? I mean,
we just
can you believe it?
There's a few decades between us, but apart from that, we're practically the same person.
Oh my goodness. And this is what I like about podcasting, Michelle, is there we are sitting here from you on the other side of the world, 17 hours ahead of me to the other side, and there we are discussing. We have never met before. We just got to meet each other in the last half hour. Really, I looked at your bio and I had no idea about all that stuff that you told me. And at the same time, what is happening is that thousands, tens of thousands of people are watching this podcast live. And so that is the interesting part about it, is that podcasting is such an amazing media. I know you, a speaker, so do I. But a lot of times what happens, I do it more selectively now. In September, actually, I'm speaking to a group in Alberta, Canada, here about ADHD as a keynote speaker to a group of people there. Those are selectively things that I like to do. But podcasting, I can do here and I can do on virtual with people from around the world. It is an amazing platform, and it's still at the beginning, in my view. And it will kind of pick up from here more and more and more. So just coming back to the other parts then, so what I then had to do there, and the point that I was trying to make, I want to give you some background who I am, and then, but the other part is that coming back to branding, is that I had the Brink group of companies that is out there, has 3 silos. One is lumber manufacturing. We have 3 or 4 different plants. Then the other one is warehousing, distribution, and logistics is another silo. We're likely the largest warehousing company in northern British Columbia. And the other one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial. So those are the silos. So the businesses are doing fine and interesting. But then at the same time, it is what I found very important for me to, let me go step back a little bit further now because of the things that you just mentioned, is that I came to Canada in 1965. It took me till 1997 until I walked into a bookstore here in Prince George, 1997, and I picked up a book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. It was written by Dr. Halliwell, who has written 18 books, 5 on distraction, is ADHD, And he wrote the book in 1993. I picked up the book. I had no idea about what it was about. I had no idea about ADHD. I opened the book and I started looking at the book, and it was about ADHD. And the more I read about it, I said, my God, that's me. And so I bought the book and I wrote in the book in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am. And the other interesting part about it is I was ashamed of it because there was still stigma attached to it. And it took me 5 years before I went to my doc that delivered our 2 daughters and was a personal friend. And one day I walked into his office, and I already was 62 or so. And he said, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD." And so we looked at it and did all the things, I do. So the troubling part about it has been that during that whole period from the time that I was 13 and failed grade 7 3 times and always had that feeling of, although I was an optimist and I was outgoing and did all this, but still I had that inner feeling of failure. That and then the other part that happens is that, especially at that stage, I was only 13, and friends that I had went on to college, university, and onward, and I became, and friends can be hard on each other. I was no longer part of my group, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then I was kind of looked down at. And so, and then it took me then till I was 62. So from the time that I was 13, for 50 years, 50, I didn't know. I had no idea. There was something with me that was not the same as others. Although, even in school, I was very good at writing, and I was very good at numbers, but attention was an issue, obviously, and a lot of stuff that was going on, I may as well not have been. So sometimes, tongue-in-cheek a little bit, people say to me, even now, when I give presentation, do all that other kind of stuff, and they say to me, "Do you still have feelings about that failing grade 7 3 times? Is it still bothering you?" I said, "Yeah, it does, even still now. I should have left earlier." Tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
So my way of learning became a different way. Even then already, I had an interest in business, and I wanted to know how it worked. I would go far and wide even then. If there was a speaker on, especially from business, somewhere in Holland, I would go there and listen to them. The other part that you may find interesting is saying, "Hey, John, what are the 3 books that you took with you?" Well, the one that I took with me is Management by Drucker, that in Dutch. That was a good one. And the other one was Logical Thinking. That became also in Dutch, very important to me. The other one was about Canada. But I kind of laid the foundation already. That's where my thoughts were. So from there on in, even starting as a cleanup man, lumber pilot, I already was building my mill. It didn't matter how hard the jobs were. It didn't matter because I already was well ahead in building my mill. And then from there on in, I built the companies and all those kind of things. But it took me 50 years before I knew, and I feel that is probably one of the reasons I wrote the book ADHD Unlocked. I felt I had to share that wherever I could with people, and I still do that now, not on every podcast, but I'm still very active on it, and saying that I have an obligation to share my history, and saying that the other part is that I believe it's a superpower. And it has been for me. Because all the stuff that I do, being an author, 10 companies, blah, 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 all that other kind of stuff, people say to me, "How do you do it?" I say, "ADHD, that's why."
Yeah.
Now, the other part, Michelle, I have to mention that to you that you may find interesting is you are number 257 podcast. Actually, I had Dr. Halliwell The one that wrote the book in 1993, that I bought in 1997 on my podcast, his podcast number is 203. And so we had the discussion together, and there he is. We had the discussion together about, initially I thought about the frequency of occurrence is about 8%. But then the more I thought about it, the more I did about it, I believed always that it is much more than that, and likely around 20%. I had a discussion, and if you have an opportunity, watch me and Dr. Halliwell on the Brink 203, is that with Dr. Halliwell, I said to him, in my opinion, bouncing it by him, that I thought it probably was well over 20%. He said, no, John, well over 25%. That was his opinion. And then the other part that I said to him, that I believe in all the interaction I've had with successful, and the operative is successful, CEOs and entrepreneurs, I believe the frequency of occurrence is likely over 50%. He said, no, John, it's over 75%. I agree with him. And so,
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to just run by you,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I think we're like what's that? That says the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And the more you spend time with people who are in where you want to be and who you want to be, it forces you to up level. And you, as you mentioned, when you came to Canada, you were doing that, although not physically. So you brought these books with you. You were putting yourself in that frequency of those people. And like you said, you were building those businesses in your brain. They were already built. You just needed time to catch up.
Correct. So then what happened is, coming back to branding, so it took me a long time before I could be interactive effectively. I did okay in my companies, and I was very good in about 3 or 4 people together, but anything beyond that, I was not very good at. And so, so confidence maybe was something to do with it, or other things. My business is already successful, and a lot of people said to me, you should write a book about it, your business, and so I tried to do that, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the one thing that happened is that an ex-sister-in-law said to me, why don't you go with me to Toastmasters? I said, Toastmasters? Well, yeah. I said, what do they do there? Well, it's about communications. And so then later on, obviously, I found that there's probably about 450,000 people, mainly North America, but likely Australia, Europe, and all over the place, that are actively involved in Toastmasters. And of the ones that have been part of Toastmasters, probably 10 million of them over the last 40, 50 years, to certain levels, have done quite well by the experience of Toastmasters. For me, going to the first session, I said, I'll go, but nobody's going to ask me any questions, right? No, and he said, no, just sit down and just watch it. So I was sitting there watching it, and then they halfway through, they said, hey, John, stand up and tell us a little bit about it. I said, oh my God, I'll never go back here. But I did. I stayed there for 10 years. I became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level you can get in Toastmasters. That was important for me, and that part changed my life. And but again, at an older age, because by the time from 1990 to 2000, I was involved in Toastmasters, and and then again, I was already over my 60s. And then the combination of Toastmasters and ADHD, it changed my world. I became much more proactive. And then again, I wrote, saying on the book, the first one that I wrote, it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, then 2 years to write it. Writing books is not easy, as you likely know, and but very rewarding once you get started on it. The point that I'm trying to make in a long way, I had to kind of lay the base so that you know who is this guy, is that if I want to make my companies even more successful, obviously one of our companies is also a media company, that is not only doing podcasting, doing a lot of other stuff in media, and looking at building a platform in addition to all of that, then I have to raise my personal profile. If I raise my personal profile, then it will get more exposure that I get, the more benefits we will have on our different companies. And so that has happened now over the last 10 years in particular, even more specifically in the last 5-6 years, since I've been writing books, actively involved in podcasting and other things. So where that then becomes the level, and then being a public speaker on issues that are very much of interest to the world, is saying that, where do you want to go from here, John? Would be likely your question, is saying that I want to build my personal profile. The company is doing well, but I want to look further at podcasting and at a platform on social media that has huge opportunity. So that's kind of where I'm going with my books. I'm writing 2 other books now. The one is Living Young, Dying Old. I'm writing another book that is the next one, the book number 5 and book number 6. 5 is on communications. Obviously, I have a good background in that now. Toastmasters has helped me, obviously. But it's one of the most important parts in life to become an effective communicator, in particular having the ability not to be only speaking, but also become a good listener, and then be able to think on your feet is very, very important.
Yeah. And I think that is important for everybody, whether they want to speak on stage or they want to podcast, but even in your own career, when you want to ask for a raise, when in a relationship, I mean, like a romantic relationship, communication is so important. When you want to step up and be a leader to your kids, like communicate, like it is the foundation of every single relationship, both personally and professionally. And I think it's quite overlooked. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that even I had was that it's a skill that you're either born with, like you either have it or you don't. When really it's like any muscle, it's built, and it's like practice makes perfect. So I think communication is vital. Well, on the whole branding side of things, I think you're a great example of what to do in terms of a lot of my clients. I've a couple of different types of clients. Some have their own business and they want to step out from the shadows of that business and build their own personal brand. So for taking you, for example, if you were to stay only within your company, then you would only be talking about lumbar, that kind of what is relevant to your business. But the joy of building a personal brand is you can talk about things that are personal to you. So you talk about your rich history. You're obviously talking about your bodybuilding, ADHD, things that are interesting to you. And from a business, this is why I say that personal branding and corporate branding are completely different. Because if we were to look at that from a brand strategy, a corporate brand strategy point of view, we would say that's very mismatched, but it's not. You are the thread that is weaving these together. I like to use the analogy of like a braid. So we take this element, which is like your ADHD. We take this element, which is you being born in Holland and the history and how you got to Canada. You take this element of, how you became a speaker and your communication skills, et cetera, et cetera. And then we just kind of weave it into this beautiful, thick, long braid, which is essentially just you and all these seemingly random topics, but they're not random. They're all who make you who you are. So building on that, and then it opens you up to a whole different audience and helps you live more authentically, which is really what I think is the most rewarding part about building your personal brand, is you really get to discover who you are, what lights you up, and you get to go out and live it just on a more amplified and exciting way.
Yeah, the interesting part about it, Michelle, as you well know, most people would say, and that's a fact that there is nothing more difficult than being a presenter or a speaker. And most people fear personal or speaking because of confidence that or the ability to work the way through it and to get exposure to it is very, very important, because at the end of the day, and all the things that you do, and I do that now a lot of times, that I do presentations to younger people, either at the higher levels of high schools or colleges, universities. I speak about having confidence and who you are. Everybody is special as to who they are, and there is only one of you. And too many people are too preoccupied. This is not quite right. That's not quite right, and not unique to women, but also with men. In a lot of cases, are the car they drive, the clothes they wear, and so to have that confidence and feeling good about themselves, very, very important, I believe. And then the other part is that, and that's why I wrote the book, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream, is that a lot of times when I make presentations, I always ask, what do you want to do for a career after you're done in university? And saying, well, I don't know. So my suggestion, respectfully, is that, that go talk to different individuals. You want to be a truck driver? Talk to a truck driver. Ask him, what does he do? How does he do it? How does he like it? Blah, blah, blah. Or you want to be a builder, or building our houses or whatever, then talk to somebody that does that. Or you want to be a lawyer or an accountant, or for that matter, a CEO or an entrepreneur of some description. Talk to them, because they love to talk to people about careers that they want to pursue, and it gives you a better idea. So then, that's why I wrote the book, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And I was lucky that when I was born very early, I knew at a 5-year-old I wanted to go to Canada. And then the other one was because of I liked lumber, and I worked at 13 in a furniture factory. I wanted to build my own factory, and so very early in life I knew where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to start, and then what it would be. So I was very fortunate. But on the other hand, I saw a program on the US channel, I don't know which one it was anymore, but they say that in the United States, 75% of the people don't like their jobs. And of the 75%, 70% of them are looking for another job. And I say that's not good, because then you take all of that with you and it surrounds you in saying, this person is not a happy person. And it makes life not easy, or easy to live or to be around. And and then if you say to me, did you find your passion? Well, I sure did. And are you living the dream? I sure am. And even now, so, and it is so important, because it kind of gives you the direction in life.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I believe that you have more than one passion. I mean, like, again, taking you for an example, you had you wanted to build your factory, you wanted to work in lumber, but then it kind of evolves, and then you want to be a speaker, and then you're finding this passion now with podcasting, which you already mentioned how much you love, and it evolves, and it grows with you. I would just add to that a little bit, would be a lot, if you don't know what you want to do in terms of like profession, start with the feeling. Like, what do you want to feel? Do you want to feel like accomplished? Do you want to feel seen? Do you want to sorry like, what is the feeling that you want? And then you can kind of almost reverse engineer it, and then find a profession with that suits your skills and your interests. But then you have that feeling, which will kind of fulfill that purpose side of things. And again, just coming back to personal branding, that is a little bit of what I do as well. I reverse engineer it. We figure out what your goals are. How do you want to feel? What is the lifestyle that you want? And it sounds so trivial, and people skip over it and everyone goes, yeah, I know my goals. Yeah. And they're bouncing around in their head somewhere, but they've never taken the time to really think about it and write it down and,
Exactly.
analyze it. And then from
Exactly.
there, then you can learn more about yourself and reverse engineer anything and everything that you want in your life. That's how I
Yeah.
see it anyway.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And then whatever you do, be good at it. So whatever you do, give it all that you got. That to me is very, very important. So if I do something, may it be writing books, or may it be podcasting, may it be bodybuilding, or all the other kind of things, I give it the best that I have, and the bodybuilding thing happened. I don't know about you, but with me, it happened more accidental than anything else. In 2008, I already was 68 years old. I had a case of diverticulitis, a rupture of my colon, and that is very toxic, and you have about 48 hours to do something about it. And I came this close. And then my wife is vegetarian and been preaching to me for many, many years. And I was okay, but I could do much better. And so then I was taking that more serious from that point forward. And the other part is that I decided that I have to work on my fitness more. And I did what everybody else does. At the end of the year, we say, I'm going to do this, that, and that. And then I'm going to get a membership to the gym. So that is our commitments for the year. And then 2 weeks later, I can find 100 reasons why I'm too busy to go there. And then we'll do the same thing all over again. But this time I didn't, because I knew this was something that was very, very important. So I got a trainer and I started going to the gym. And after about 6-7 years, and I give it all that I got, that's usually what I do. And so after 6 or 7 years, somebody came up to us and he said, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Yeah, you." And I thought, why not? Gives me a goal, right? So I started to then, in a serious way, working with my trainer, competing, and then started competing and getting ready for competition in 2017 or 2018 here in northern BC, bodybuilding and physique. So I came in bodybuilding second, physique third. That qualified me for the provincials. I came in third in bodybuilding, second in physique. That qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And so,
Wow.
and then COVID came, and now
Yeah.
again today, I'm again getting ready for competition. I want to go back to the nationals and the Arnolds in 2025, and I'm 85. That effectively makes me the oldest bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder in North America. And I love
Wow.
it.
That's
I
extremely
love going to
impressive.
the
Yeah.
gym, and that's what I do, so it's a healthy thing. So, and then health, I'm a vegan, so, and I take that very, very serious. So, so the combination, and then I felt I had to write a book about that, living young, dying old. And it's
I
coming
love that
out,
title, by the way.
you like it? Yeah.
I love the title. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So, so that's kind of, so the point that I'm making is that, correct what you were saying is that, and then make sure that, that's what I say to young people, is that too preoccupied, including myself at times, is that saying, you are special, each one of you is unique. There is only one of you on this earth. And so that, don't be preoccupied, this is not quite right, that's not quite right. Be you, and act like that, and be proud of who you are, and give back to the community wherever you can. Be involved and be positive. Attitude, passion, work ethic, what follows is success.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. There's that I don't know who said it initially, but there's this analogy of right up till your 20s, you kind of try and be what everybody else wants you to be, and then you spend the rest of your life trying to unpack it and
Yeah,
reverse back to who you are initially.
Yeah.
which is it's so true. And it's so great that you're saying that to young people, because I mean, if I could go back to my younger self, I would be like, s- stand in your own power. Don't be swayed by what everybody else is doing, and stay true to who you are. And I have a feeling I probably did get that advice when I was younger, but it's very hard to do when all of your friends are going down this path. You you want to fit in. It's human nature to want to be with be with the crowd. But yeah, I'm finding now that I'm like, if I had just stuck to my guns, because now I'm unlearning all of those things and becoming coming home to myself and being more authentic to who I am.
Yeah, and that is so critical, Michelle,
Hmm.
is that I'm not sure if obviously, with social media now, when I grew up in the 60s, 70s, that was not there really. To that extent, I'm not sure how much influence that had substantially to a certain extent, Facebook
Hmm.
and all the other kind of things. But I look at the benefits of it more so than the problem with it, necessarily because it's part of now who we are. And the next thing, obviously, it's moving even forward. Artificial intelligence is next. And so it's
Yeah.
very much an evolving world in regards to technology.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's key as well, is there are so many positives, and there are and but anything has the potential to be toxic. That's how I view it. You
I
know,
agree with that.
so just trying to find the way that you can use it positively, and having a positive outcome and outlook is so vital.
Now, your client base, is that
Hmm.
mainly in the younger ages, or does it right go up towards middle age and beyond?
It's mainly middle age and beyond.
Mainly, yeah.
Um, yeah. what what I've noticed, the common thread is these are women who have already built successful careers and they want more. And they don't just want a job anymore. They want to create impact. They have a story to tell. They want to step on stages. They want to write the books. They want more out of life than just their job. So younger people don't really haven't had that life experience yet. They're still very optimistic. The world is their oyster. Whereas when you get into like your mid 30s and beyond, you know what you want from life. You've been through the ringer, and you're like, this is what I know. I can help people. I have a story to tell. I can help people. I want to get on stage. I want to write a book. I want to have a TED talk, and I know I can make a massive impact. I just need to be shown how, and that's where I
Yeah,
come in.
and you have the background as well in your life, and so tell us a bit more about that. How did you get into uh, bodybuilding for one, but other things that so it's your background, your experience that gave you the foundation to help others. I believe
Yeah.
that's what I did with my life, is feeling that my background will help others in terms of saying, okay, how did he go through this? And it was not all easy. It was all the ups and downs. Hence my book, Against All Odds,
Hmm.
or and finding out ADHD, although it took me, nearly, 50 years to find out that I had it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, so those kind of things. But, you have had ups and downs and making, but the experiences you had in New York that again brought
Hmm.
you back to saying, what do I do? Go back to Ireland? Or, so all of those things had an impact on you as to who you are.
Yeah, definitely. So just on the whole bodybuilding thing, it was it was always something that was in the back of my mind. I started training my early 20s, I think. Actually, I think it was after spending a summer in New York. I'd put on a lot of weight. I discovered Dunkin' Donuts and all the fun processed food that the US has to offer. So I kind of got into training, started going to the gym and really, really loved it. And then got really inspired by people who were bodybuilding and competing. And maybe this is the ADHD talking, but I needed something that would kind of hold me accountable, and I needed a goal. I couldn't just do it just to do it. So someone who would never does anything by half measures, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just get on stage and in a, as my coach would call it, 4 triangles of material, which is essentially what you get on stage with. And yeah, and that's what I did. So I competed in 2018, which I think is the same year that you competed, which is
I did.
quite funny. Yeah, so that was a goal, and like you, I just went, tunnel focus, and this is what I did. On the other side of it, I had realized that the bodybuilding life is not for me. While I was in prep, I was feeling like that anyway, but I had committed to the goal and I kept going, and I said, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go all the way. On the other side of it, I was like, this is not, it's not my thing, but I'm so grateful that I did it, and I learned that I could achieve something if I just put my mind to it. And then I learned how to push through certain limiting beliefs and what to do when you mess up, when you accidentally go off track, how do you recover from that? And that helps you and helped me in all areas of my life, not just, diet and exercise and
No question.
and prep. So then the other part of your question is how kind of my life experiences are helping me now and have shaped me. So New York, as I had mentioned, really kind of beat me up. And again, understanding when to throw in the towel. And I believe I stayed in New York longer than I should have. It was not working out for me, but I had committed so much that I was white knuckling it.
Yeah.
When I
Quitting
came
doesn't come
to,
natural, right?
right, exactly. And then when I came to Australia and I worked in corporate and I worked up the ranks. I worked in-house for a software company, and I came in as like a marketing assistant, and by the time I left 4 years later, I was their global head of marketing. And so I had achieved what I had kind of set out to achieve, and I was, doing all these things that I had dreamed of when I was in college and university. But I was not happy. I was like, oh, okay, this is just sucking my soul. It's not
Right.
it was not everything that I thought it was going to be.
Right.
That's when I reassessed everything. And that's what led me to setting up my own business. And then as
Right.
I discussed, so through setting up my own business, I realized the gap and the difficult, how people find it difficult to set up the personal brand. And that's how I've pivoted to where I am. How that comes back to helping my clients is they're all in quite a similar point of view, in that like they have built their careers, they've went after these goals, they've achieved them, and they're like, actually, it's not everything. It's not fulfilling me in the way
Right.
that I thought it would.
Right.
And the other added thing is, a year and a half ago, I had a baby, and I now have different priorities in life.
Exactly.
So while I was in my 20s, I could go and do what a lot of these mindset and career coaches tell you to do. And it's like, go hell for leather, live off 2-minute noodles if you have to, burn the boats, go all in. I can't do that anymore.
No.
And there's a balance. Like, I have to put food on the table. I have to put a roof over the head. I'm there for bedtime. I'm there for bath time. My priorities have shifted.
And you love it.
And I absolutely love it. It lights me up.
Yeah.
So, and I always believe that you attract what you put out. So this wasn't intentional, but a lot of my clients, what I attract are mothers, and their biggest goals and passions are not to have a Lamborghini or to make $1 million or to be on a yacht. Now, I'm telling you, if you were to offer them any of those things, believe me, they would take it, but that's not their goal. Their goal is to be able to do school pickup, to be present, to go on holidays and make memories with their family
Yeah.
and, live in a lovely, like safe, beautiful home. That is what drives them. And that's also what drives me now.
Yeah.
So being able to help them build a personal brand that has the opportunities that they love and they crave come to them without sacrificing their family or time with their family or what really, really like they hold dear in their hearts.
Right.
And then when I see that happening, it just lights me up.
Yeah.
So it just becomes this beautiful circle of us showing each other what's possible and that you don't
Right.
have to choose. And earlier on, when you asked me about do I work with women over men, this is why, because it's women feel like they have to choose between their career and their family,
Yeah. That's reality,
and
right?
yeah. So
A lot of time.
I want to be an advocate. Yeah, I want to be an advocate to be like you don't have to choose.
No.
You can have and also I'm a little bit greedy. I like to have my cake and and eat it too. So
Yeah.
I'm
Why
like,
not?
you
Eh?
know what? If I can be out here, building my own personal brand, building my business, being a single mom in a foreign country, I mean, like anybody else can do it too.
I love it.
Hmm.
Michelle, this was an
Yes.
amazing podcast.
Thank you so much, John.
So I really appreciated having you on my podcast, and let's make sure we stay in touch. It is a live
Yeah.
podcast, and to all those people watching us, like us and join us for other podcasts that may follow. And
Mhm.
again, comments and are also appreciated. Again, Michelle, thank you very much for being part of my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.